Good afternoon and welcome to another edition of Dodgers Dogs as part of the Dodgers Daily Network. My name is Austin Brubaker. I'm going to be your host this afternoon. We've got a lot of news to be able to cover. Last show, Casey and I were able to do live together was Wednesday night. And in between Wednesday and with the show that we're doing today, there is a lot of ground to be able to cover with the Los Angeles Dodgers. I'm going to be doing my very best within the next hour to hour and 15 minutes to be able to go in depth as much as I can into each one of these topics. I'm sure over the next couple of days, Casey and I will be able to get together and talk through a lot of this similar news as the Dodgers are in Camelback Ranch right now. The team has reported to spring training, and we are just a few days away from the Los Angeles Dodgers having spring training games. Spring training games for the Dodgers will be on Saturday. Saturday, the Dodgers will be on the road to take on the Angels in their first exhibition spring training game. And then on Monday, a week from today, will be the first game from Camelback Ranch. Super exciting times for the Los Angeles Dodgers and for just baseball as a whole, because baseball is on its way back. I'm excited to be able to talk through a lot of different news for you with you guys. It's going to be a little bit of rapid fire, so I'm going to be going through a lot of this stuff really quickly. So Chuck Huddleston, thank you for joining us. Craig Osterberg, Tark the Shark, R. Carino. Where did you get that hat? Funny enough, actually, I was going to go ahead and mention this. First off, for the past couple of Monday shows, I actually been doing a little bit of a series of some of my jersey collection that I have from minor league baseball. This is a hat and jersey of the Great Lakes Loons, the high A affiliate of the Los Angeles Dodgers, just 3 steps away from being Los Angeles. This is the level that Josue DePaula, that Zaire Hope, that Kendall George, that outfield, Mike Soroto, Eduardo Quintero, all played under last year. And actually, you can go ahead and get some of this merch for yourself. I actually had it queued up to be able to showcase some of the jerseys that they have, because they have all these sweet jerseys right now, including the one that I'm wearing right here. This is where you can also go ahead and get the hats as well for the Loons as well, the fitted hat. Loons home hat, to be able to get that for yourself. Loons.milbstore.com. Get yourself some merch like this, Arcarino 5. So today's going to be a little bit of a rapid fire news paced show, because I've got a lot of information and I want to make sure that you guys are all covered on before, just so you're caught up with spring training. First news that I want to go ahead and mention was something that's a little bit of a surprise for the Dodgers. It makes sense once the Dodgers actually made the move, but it is a really good thing for the Los Angeles Dodgers. If you look up and down this roster, one of the question marks just overall as an organization was going to be who was going to be the heir apparent at third base after Max Muncy had left. Earlier in the offseason, Max Muncy had his club option picked up. He signed a really team-friendly deal that was a, I believe, 2-year contract plus a club option for the 2026 season. That was exercised. He's going to be paid, I believe, $10 million for the 2026 season, his age 35 season. Then last week on Thursday, I believe is what it was, the Dodgers signed Max Muncy to a contract extension. It is a 1-year, $10 million contract extension with a club option for an additional year. So in essence, if the contract extension is picked up, it's essentially going to be 2 years, $17 million for Max Muncy to be extended through the 2028 season if his club option is picked up. And this is beyond incredible news for the Los Angeles Dodgers because of what Max Muncy has been able to do. First off, let's take a little bit of a look at the overall payroll for third basemen just in general, just so you guys have an understanding of where payroll is at for the overall landscape of third baseman. This is with Spotrac, so it's not completely 100% accurate just because there's been a couple of question marks with some of the positioning. For example, Rafael Devers is still listed as a third baseman. He will be a first baseman for the San Francisco Giants, but this gives us within the ballpark of what we're looking at. And what you want to think about Max Muncy, essentially getting paid $10 million for his services. Where does that rack up among third basemen in the game of baseball? You have Bo Bichette getting paid $42 million by the New York Mets to play third base for them. You look at a lot of contracts within the 20s. You have to go all the way down to 15th to get to Max Muncy's contract for the 2026 season at $10 million. This is lower than, for example, an Alec Bohm, lower than an Okamoto, lower than an Eugenio Suarez, lower than a Ryan McMahon, lower than a Murakami. This is within very good, reasonable place for the Dodgers to be paying Max Muncy. And if you look at just the overall production, excuse some of the ads that are on here because I don't have the upgraded version of Fangraphs anymore. If you look at the past 3 seasons, 2023 to 2025, you look at third baseman, primarily third baseman, Max Muncy is 10th in Fangraphs wins above replacement at 7.8. And one of the reasons why he's 10th in wins above replacement, if you look at his plate appearances, 1260, that is far lower than a lot of the guys above the list. And he's even higher than, for example, Nolan Arenado, Alec Bohm, a bunch of these other guys that have even more plate appearances than him. So if you sort this by WRC+, Max Muncy, third best third baseman in the game of baseball by WRC+. You can put him top 5 or so by WRC+, production-wise, when he is healthy on the field. And with Max Muncy, 1 year, $10 million contract, I think it's very obvious that Max Muncy loves it in Los Angeles. I think even some of the statements that he has made indicate that he loves Los Angeles, loves the city, and loves everything that there is to be about a Los Angeles Dodger. And the Dodgers are getting Max Muncy on some type of discount. I think if you look at other free agent deals, similar-ish, but somebody like potentially an Eugenio Suarez got paid more than what a Max Muncy got paid to go play for the Los Angeles Dodgers. Now, where does this place it, and what is going to be it for the Dodgers to be worth this type of contract, and what can we expect going forward for Max Muncy? Looking at his numbers with Fangraphs right here, this is just Max Muncy's Fangraphs stats, he's going to be entering into his age 35 season this upcoming year. Now, when you look at the past couple of years, it's been really good production. Last 2 years, 133, 137 WRC+. I think there is going to be, at some point, some sort of negative regression. And if you look at all the different projection models, they have him closer to being around a 120 WRC+, as opposed to a 130 WRC+. His defense not being the greatest at third base, but that is still an incredibly valuable player to be part of your team. And this is something that I think is really important, and one of the reasons why the Dodgers decided to do this move, aside from the uncertainty of the third base position going forward, is Max Muncy has been able to provide value to your club. And if you go around $10 million, typically it's $8 to $9 million for a Fangraphs WAR, per Fangraphs WAR, meaning you pay typically on fair market value $8 to $9 million for 1 wins above replacement. Let's just round that up to 10. Essentially, Max Muncy would just need to get to 1 wins above replacement, or essentially 2 wins above replacement from the 2027 and 2028 season. And if you look at Max Muncy when he has been on the field, excluding 2020, which was a weird shortened season, he's gotten to at least 2 wins above replacement per season. All Max Muncy would need to do to, in theory, get to the value of the contract is in 2 seasons, put up 2 wins above replacement. So what is the exact role going to be for Max Muncy going forward? Because obviously plays a crucial role for the Los Angeles Dodgers and has been the third baseman for the Dodgers primarily. I think if you go into this upcoming season, it's going to be very similar to what it has been in the past. He's going to be basically the everyday third baseman. I think the Dodgers are going to be strategic on being able to provide Max Muncy with a little bit additional rest, only because you look at the past couple of seasons, he has not played more than 144 games once in the past 3 seasons, past 4 seasons, I should say. 2022, 136, 23, 135. 2024, he only played in 73 games. And in 2025, 100 games for Max Muncy. I think they're going to provide some strategic rest, and I think this is going to be primarily against left-handed pitchers for Max Muncy. I think that's one of the ways that they can go ahead and provide Max Muncy with some rest, while also being able to turn to alternatives that might be better against left-handed pitchers than Max Muncy. Max Muncy is dominant and great against righties. He's not so great against lefties. Last 3 seasons, an 81 WRC+, for Max Muncy against left-handed pitching. That certainly is going to be something that, as he gets older, I would probably expect to continue. So, 2026 season, getting paid $10 million. This was the original club option that was picked up. I expect Max Muncy to be more regular for a third baseman. So what happens if the season doesn't go well for Max Muncy? Is this deal a bad deal for the Los Angeles Dodgers? I don't think so. And I think at the very worst of what you would anticipate, meaning like the 20th percentile option for what happens to Max Muncy, I still think you have an offensive bat that can go ahead and contribute well, particularly against right-handed pitchers. And this could be something where if worse comes to worse with Max Muncy, if his defense falls off a cliff, if his offense takes a little bit more of a regression, I still think he's going to provide enough impact to be a powerful left-handed bat to be able to come off the bench. Not my prediction of what's going to happen. I predict Max Muncy to be a at least plus side of the platoon third baseman for the Dodgers going forward. But if things go wrong, you could see Max Muncy still providing some value with the power that he has and the patience and plate discipline that he has at the plate. There is a difference in this Dodgers lineup when Max Muncy is in the lineup versus when he's not in the lineup. And that was so apparent last year for the Los Angeles Dodgers. I'm excited that Max Muncy is going to be part of this team. I don't think we can project him to be as productive as he's been in the past. But if he puts up a 120 in 2026, and then in 2027 he's able to play, let's just say 100 games at third base, plus side of the platoon, able to put up maybe a 115 WRC plus, I think that's still going to provide a lot of value to this Dodgers team. And then 2028, you'll see what happens from there. Maybe he's a little bit more of a bench type of bat if the bat regresses enough, but you still have enough power left in the bat, because there's no sign that Max Muncy's power is deteriorating to a degree. Look at his expected weighted on base average the past couple of seasons, which heavily takes into account power. 362, 353, 374. His ISO still is above the 220 range, 263, 262, 227. Power very much is still there for Max Muncy, so I still think he's going to be provided a lot of value. I'm excited for Max Muncy and his contract extension and what that's going to do for the Dodgers' options going forward. We'll see what this means for some of the players within the system or some of the players that are on the fringe roster for the Dodgers. For example, guys like Alex Freeland is one of the guys that was in part of the conversation of if somebody had to take over from Max Muncy in the 2027 season. I think he was towards, if not at the top of the list. Now there's going to be at least additional time for the Dodgers to be able to make this decision. Max Muncy will be a Dodger at least through the 2027 season and perhaps beyond that. Additional signing took place between the time that Casey and I last did our show. Kiké Hernandez is back with the Los Angeles Dodgers. The worst kept secret within the Dodgers organization that Kiké Hernandez was going to return to the Los Angeles Dodgers has officially been made realized. Kiké Hernandez is back. He officially signed a 1-year, $4.5 million contract to return to the Los Angeles Dodgers. We've talked a lot about Kiké Hernandez. I've had my own criticisms with Kiké, to be fair. And in fact, I've spent as a lot of the parts of the offseason, there was a lot of question marks, especially when it comes to his regular season statistics. Because to be fair, Kiké Hernandez has not been a great regular season hitter. The last 4+ seasons for Kiké Hernandez, it's a 74, 73, 82, and 70 WRC plus during the regular season. What makes Kiké Hernandez unique, what makes him special, as he performs in October. Everybody recognizes that, or at least if you haven't recognized that, I think you just have to watch a lot of Dodgers baseball to be able to see that. You look at his postseason since 2019. In 2019 with the Dodgers, 275 WRC plus, 8 plate appearances. Take that with a grain of salt. 31 plate appearances in 2020, 102 WRC plus. 2021 with Boston, he had 52 plate appearances, a 228 WRC plus. 23, 8 plate appearances with the Dodgers, 108. 2024, he was great, 57 plate appearances, 127 WRC plus, and an 80 WRC plus last year when he was injured. He's a career 122 WRC plus player in the postseason. Kiké Hernandez steps up in those big moments. He is versatile enough to where he can fill in a lot of different holes depending on who is struggling. So if somebody like an Andy Pages struggles again during October, Kiké Hernandez has the ability to step up in that specific role. If you have struggling players at the second base position, Kiké Hernandez is versatile enough to where he can step into that position. If the Dodgers want to do the same thing that they did last year and platoon Max Muncy a little bit, especially if they go up against a team like the Philadelphia Phillies that they did last year, Kiké Hernandez could step up and fill in that position. And I think that's going to be one of the main roles for Kiké Hernandez once he returns onto the roster, is that bench platoon bat versus left-handed pitching. I think that's going to be the optimal role to where he's not overused on this roster because, again, as Casey and I have mentioned, the regular season stats aren't great. Really, all I'm looking for Kiké Hernandez and his contributions is do enough to get his bat ready for October. I don't know how many plate appearances that is. I don't know if it's 100 plate appearances. I don't know if it's 200 plate appearances. I don't know if it's 50 plate appearances. Whatever that number is, to be able to get him ready for October, that's all I want Kiké Hernandez to be able to do, and then have him ready to go for those specific moments because he has a vast history of being able to perform in big-time moments. I'm excited for Kiké Hernandez coming back to this organization. He will not be healthy, ready to go for opening day, though. This was comments made by Brandon Gomes, by the organization. This is going to be more of a mid-season type of deal. There's no time frame for what to expect for Kiké Hernandez, except for sometime during the middle of the season. I don't know if that's June. I don't know if that's July. I don't know if that's August. It's going to depend on a lot of his rehab, his progression as he goes forward. We will have to wait to see. Kiké Hernandez is back with the Los Angeles Dodgers, but we have to wait for him to be able to return. In order to make room for Kiké Hernandez onto this roster, Evan Phillips was added to the 60-day injured list. The 60-day injured list officially opened up when pitchers and catchers reported for the Los Angeles Dodgers, which I believe was on Thursday. I thought it was Friday. I think there was some sort of statement that I read that it was Friday. Technically, I believe it was Thursday when pitchers and catchers reported, and on Thursday is when the Dodgers could go ahead and move players to the 60-day injured list. Interesting enough, they did not move Brock Stewart to the 60-day injured list. They moved Evan Phillips, who certainly is going to be out the first half of the season, to the 60-day injured list to make room for Kiké Hernandez. I'm going to guess that sometime over the next little bit, they are going to move Kiké as well to the 60-day injured list to make room for somebody else on this roster, or just to open up a roster spot. So I don't know if this is going to be a position player that they want to add to this roster. I don't know if it's going to be a pitcher, but Kiké, at some point, whenever the Dodgers want to make an additional move to this roster, can be added to the 60-day injured list. He is back for the Los Angeles Dodgers. We will see him about mid-season sometime, and both him and Evan Phillips, as it was stated, are going to be like trade deadline acquisitions to this club. That's essentially what you want to think of them as. They have them in the back pocket, and they can utilize them later in the season, but they're not needed up front at the beginning of the season. Speaking of not necessarily being ready to go for the start of the season, this actually just came out today, I believe. Let's talk a little bit about Tommy Edman, because it sounds like, based off of the reports that we have, that Tommy Edman is going to miss the beginning of the season. He will not be ready for opening day. Now, recently there has been some rumbling that perhaps Tommy Edman could be ready for opening day. He, of course, is coming back from some type of injury to his, I don't remember if it's ankle, if it's his leg, if it's foot, somewhere in that area. Tommy Edman has not been 100% completely healthy. Went through an off-season procedure, and there's been question marks of whether he would be ready to go to start the season for the Los Angeles Dodgers. He will not be healthy, ready to go to be part of the Dodgers roster per reports for opening day. In fact, I think Tommy Edman was able to talk to media today to discuss that he will not be ready for opening day. So I think that's going to be pretty official. Not going to be on the opening day roster, which leaves room onto this roster that we have to be able to talk through what exactly is going to be the plan, because Tommy Edman's roster spot is going to have to be replaced at least at the beginning of the season. So if we go back, this is a Excel spreadsheet that I use to be able to help me visualize what's going on with the Dodgers roster. I think right now, assuming that all these players are healthy, I think there's 11 position players that are locked for the opening day roster. You have Shohei, Will Smith, Mookie Betts, Freddie Freeman, Max Muncy, Teoscar Hernandez, Andy Pages, Kyle Tucker. Then on the bench, you have Rushing, Rojas, and Alex Call. I think there is 2 roster spots that are going to need to be filled in before the start of spring training. Tommy Edman, Kiké, Hernandez on the injured list. And I think the first spot that is going to go ahead and be filled in is actually a battle between Alex Freeland and Hae-Sung Kim. Now, for both Alex Freeland and Hae-Sung Kim, I believe this is going to be a competition, and I do not believe, actually, that this is going to be a both can receive time at the MLB level. I honestly believe that it is going to be one or the other that makes the opening day roster for the Los Angeles Dodgers. Why do I think that? It's because they both provide very similar roles, meaning that they are infielders. They can be middle infielders. I have a little bit of versatility. Freeland could play third base and shortstop. Kim can play shortstop and a little bit of center field, which it sounds like he's going to be doing a little bit more center field, which is good because the Dodgers don't have a ton of options as far as versatility for center field. The Dodgers need somebody to be able to be versatile on the infield, but also be a left-handed hitter platoon option at second base early in the season with Miguel Rojas. I truly believe that the second base position is going to be, at least at the beginning of the season until Tommy Edman is coming back, a platoon with Miguel Rojas, who is great against left-handed pitching. Miguel Rojas is going to be on the negative side, or the minus sign of the platoon against lefties. And then there's going to be opportunities for either a Kim or an Alex Freeland to be able to take those options. Both Alex Freeland and Kim, I believe with the way the organization feels about them, they feel like they are going to be better players against right-handed pitching, and that's how they want to utilize them. Certainly, if you look at a lot of the minor league stats with Alex Freeland, he's been a much better hitter against righties than he has against lefties. Kim was, weirdly enough, better against lefties than righties, but I think that's a little bit more of an anomaly for Hae-Sung Kim. I truly believe that the organization views him as being more of a hitter against right-handed pitching. So I think with the roster spot, and you can pencil in either Alex Freeland or Hae-Sung Kim, I think there's going to be competition. I think there's reasons to be able to add both of those guys, either one of those guys to the roster, and I think it could be influenced by a couple of different factors. One, who has more room to grow at the minor league level, or who needs additional development at the minor league level. Could be influenced by who plays better during spring training. Could be influenced by what is the need positional wise. I think if you're talking about positional wise on this roster, Kim's ability to play center field could play a big factor into this mix. I think those are a couple of different reasons why the Dodgers can make certain decisions. But I don't think that they're going to add both of these guys. And the reason why I don't think they're going to add both of these guys is if you add both of the guys, one of those players, they're either going to have to split playing time on the plus side of the platoon, which means you might be getting a 33% Miguel Rojas, 33% Alex Freeland, 33% Hae-Sung Kim at second base, which I don't think is good for the development of either a Hae-Sung Kim or an Alex Freeland, only getting playing time 33% of the time. Or you play one a lot, and then the other one sits on the bench. Meaning, for example, let's say it's Hae-Sung Kim and then Miguel Rojas platooning at second base, and Alex Freeland is another option behind a Max Muncy. Well, Max Muncy is better against right-handed pitching, the exact same thing that Alex Freeland is, which means there's not a great platoon pair between the two, which means that the only opportunities that Alex Freeland is going to get is not the platoon option with Max Muncy. It's going to be the leftovers of what Max Muncy can't necessarily do. You can't platoon Hae-Sung Kim and Alex Freeland. They're doing the exact same thing. They're trying to become the exact same player, which means that I think it's either one, Kim or Alex Freeland, is going to be on the opening day roster. That'll be a fascinating battle. That's one of the storylines to watch in spring training, is how are those two players doing in and of themselves, and who is going to make the opening day roster and get the first crack at a majority of plate appearances at second base. They are going to be fighting in deep competition with each other during spring. So if we go back to the board, I've made my opinion, and this is very biased because I got a chance to be able to see him in Great Lakes, and this is, in part, you could say it has to do with that. That's not where I'm trying to pull a lot of this from. I think a majority has to do with, I think there's less room for Alex Freeland to grow at the minor league level. I think Kim has got a lot of work to do on some of the swing and miss stuff that I think could be a benefit at the minor league level to be able to develop that. But let's just pencil in Alex Freeland in this case. That's 12 of the 13 position players on the roster. Who is going to be the 13th position player? You can make an argument defensive replacement. You can make an argument left-handed bench bat. I actually don't think it's any of these options. And in fact, I think the Dodgers just made a signing today that probably, or if I had to guess, would be opening the season for the Los Angeles Dodgers. This is a recent minor league signing, recent non-roster invite that you're going to be seeing in spring training that you're going to probably have to watch closely. The Dodgers signed and had a non-roster invite, Santiago Espinal. I believe, as it is right now, Santiago Espinal fits with what the Dodgers are trying to do on this team and very well could make the opening day roster for the Dodgers. What do I mean by that? Tommy Edman, part of his role and what he plays on this team is he's a really good bat against left-handed pitching. Tommy Edman, much better against lefties, about a 110 WRC plus over the past 3 seasons versus lefties than he is versus right-handed pitching. And you want somebody that can help be a platoon option as part of this mix. We already mentioned earlier in the show with Max Muncy. Max Muncy is not great against left-handed pitching. One of the platoon options that you could turn to is Miguel Rojas, but if he's already needed at the second base position to be able to help platoon with either a Kim or a Freeland, I think what the Dodgers are looking for is a right-handed infield platoon bat to be able to pair with Max Muncy. Earlier in the offseason, the Dodgers signed Andy Ibanez to a 1-year, $1.5 million contract that was intended to be able to add depth to this organization, but they also wanted him, I believe, to be depth to this organization, to be exactly that, a platoon option with Max Muncy. They decided to designate for assignment Andy Ibanez to try to pay him $1.5 million in the hope that no other teams would claim him so he can be part of the Oklahoma City roster. Again, it's that issue of 3 to 5 years of service time they've talked about with the Ben Rortvedt conversation, which will be coming up pretty soon. Santiago Espinal, I believe, is not as good of a player as Andy Ibanez. Let's not sugarcoat it at all. But I think he fits that very similar mold to where at least early in the season until Tommy Edman is healthy, I think this is a player that the Dodgers could turn to in this mix. So what are the Dodgers potentially looking for on the roster? They, I believe, are looking for an infielder with at least decent enough defense at the third base position that can go ahead and hit left-handed pitching. I think there's 2 criteria of what he needs to be able to succeed, to be able to go out and have some success on this team, or at least be able to fight for a shot on this roster. You look at Santiago Espinal, it has not been great overall by the numbers for him the past couple of seasons. If you look at 2023 to 2024, it's a 71 WRC plus. That's not great for Santiago Espinal. It's not a ton of walks, decent amount of walks. There's not a lot of strikeouts, but there's not a lot of impact on the baseball. .808 ISO for him the past couple of seasons. 245, 298, 325 for Espinal. The expected stats are not necessarily great for him because he's not able to provide a lot of impact on the baseball. Let's dive into some of the additional numbers. And first thing that I want to be able to do, let's look at does not barrel up the baseball, does not hit the ball hard at all. Where could the Dodgers be seeing something in Santiago Espinal? Let's look at his defense, and particularly I want to look at when he played some of the most defense at the third base position the past couple of seasons. If you look at games total of third base, 67 and 75 games played at the third base position. Let's look at some of his defensive stats. This is going to be defensive run saved, this is going to be outs above average, and this is going to be field and run value. If you look at last year, for the 2025 season, posted 3 outs above average, 2 fielding run value at the third base position. Year before that was a little bit more negative for him, but at least last year, he was somewhat positive for him. Positive values for him in the 2023 season. Same thing for 2021. I think there is at least enough defense to where it can be definitely passable for a Santiago Espinal to be able to play at this third base position and be able to fight for it as well. So let's take a look at some of the offensive stats, particularly let's look at some of the splits. This is going to be a little bit funky because I have it zoomed in so you guys can go ahead and see. Let's look at the overall career. What do the career numbers say for Espinal, who has not been necessarily a great career player? 291 batting average, versus left-handed pitching, which is exactly what we're looking for. It's a 107 WRC plus in his career versus left-handed pitching, 291, 344, 409. And I think the season that the Dodgers are hoping for, at least early in the season, is closer to his 2024 statistics versus left-handed pitching. Versus lefties in 2024, about 100 some plate appearances. It was a 122 WRC plus for Santiago Espinal. Look, this is not going to be one of those earth-shattering signings that the Dodgers are going to make, and it's very likely that Espinal could not make the opening day roster for the Dodgers. He is not signed onto the major league club. He's a non-roster invite for spring training, which means that he has to fight and earn his way onto the roster. But this is somebody who's played in the big leagues a lot. Look at the past 4 seasons for Espinal, games played at the MLB level, 460. It's 1464 plate appearances for Espinal the past couple of seasons. I think he's more of that veteran type of move to where there's a very specific skill set that the Dodgers are looking for. Good enough defense at the third base position and enough offense versus lefties that the Dodgers can go ahead and give Max Muncy some rest and be able to provide a little bit of rest for Muncy, be able to provide a little bit of coverage in the waiting period for Tommy Edman going into spring training. I know it's very early. I know he was just signed to the roster today, but this feels very similar to the signing of Andy Ibanez. At least in the absence of Tommy Edman, there actually is a potential spot for a Santiago Espinal to be able to earn a spot on the major league roster, not because the Dodgers are trying to take away plate appearances from Ha-Seong Kim and Alex Freeland, but because there's a specific role that neither of them fill. They're looking for a right-handed infielder, can hit against lefties, and neither one, Kim or Freeland, I don't think that is their strength or what that the Dodgers are looking for. So don't be surprised. Espinal gets a lot of plate appearances, and he is very much could be in competition for the earning a roster spot in spring training. Who are some of the other guys that could be fighting for that similar spot? One of the guys I love, why I don't think he necessarily fits into this mix as well. I've been a huge Austin Gauthier fan. I'm sure there's probably some questions as to why not Austin Gauthier as opposed to a Santiago Espinal. Why not give a chance to Gator, given what he did in the later parts of last year? I believe last year Gator played almost exclusively second base at the Oklahoma City Comets position, which you could make the argument that why not do a little bit of, you could do a Gator being that, put him in at second base. You can move a Miguel Rojas to being a platoon partner with Max Muncy. That could potentially be an option, but also Gator was not invited, or at least not a non-roster invite to spring training. I think that says where the organization is on him right now. As much as I would be high and want Gator to be able to fighting for a chance to be able to be that exact same type of player, I think the Dodgers, at least right now, prefer Miguel Rojas to be a little bit more of that platoon option at the second base position, at least for the time being, to where I don't think that's going to be the option for the Dodgers to turn down. Certainly, I hope he's able to at least get a chance to be able to fight for that in spring training. One of the other guys, if you look at the list, there's not necessarily a ton that fit this type of mold. The other one could be maybe a Nick Senzel, although he did not perform necessarily outstanding for the Oklahoma City Comets last year. It's a 777 OPS against left-handed pitching, I should say, last year, which sounds pretty good, except if you look at the Pacific Coast League environment, 800 OPS is league average. So it was slightly below league average OPS wise, probably closer to a 96, 97, maybe 95 WRC plus against left-handed pitching for Nick Senzel last year. So it's going to be a little bit of an uphill battle for him, as opposed to somebody like an Espinal who has had a lot of big league experience, albeit it's been a little bit more of a struggle for him. That's where the position players are at. As far as Tommy Edman and his injury, again, he's going to be missing a good chunk of the beginning of the season with an injury. Let's talk a little bit about Ben Rortvedt really quick. Ben Rortvedt, we had talked about it previously. Let's go through some of the timeline for Ben Rortvedt for those of you who are not familiar. Ben Rortvedt, catcher, part of the Dodgers organization last year, part of the trade, ended up being heroic for the Dodgers. Big impact. Doesn't have any minor league options though. So the Dodgers signed him to a contract, decided to designate him for assignment, with him being able to make $1.25 million with the hope that no teams would claim him. Cincinnati goes ahead, claims him. They are responsible for him. Cincinnati designates for him for assignment. Then the Dodgers take back a Ben Rortvedt, designate for assignment in Anthony Banda. But it was in the exact same situation. Essentially, what the Dodgers have been doing is they've been trying to get Ben Rortvedt to be the third catcher on the depth chart for the Dodgers, have him be down in Oklahoma City and be there getting paid $1.25 million in case there's an injury to a Will Smith or a Dalton Rushing. And the thought process behind this was the Dodgers claimed him off of waivers from the Cincinnati Reds. And then their goal was to immediately put him back on waivers, immediately designate him for assignment again, to try to go ahead and have him pass through waivers. So then it became a choice for Ben Rortvedt, either make $1.25 million playing for the Los Angeles Dodgers or in Oklahoma City, or look to sign a free agent deal where he's likely not to get that type of money because all teams passed on paying him $1.25 million to be part of their club. The Dodgers tried to pass him through waivers. He unfortunately was not passed through waivers. He was claimed by the New York Mets. The Mets have claimed Ben Rortvedt. He is now part of their organization. It's still going to be a little bit of an uphill battle for Ben Rortvedt being able to make it onto their roster. If you look at the catching depth option, he, by Fangraphs, is not projected to make the opening day roster for the New York Mets. Francisco Alvarez is currently part of the roster. They also have Luis Torrens. Alvarez can be optioned, but he's projected to be their starting catcher. He will not be optioned for them. Posted last year, 2025 stats, posted 1.8 WAR in 277 plate appearances. He's going to be the catcher for the Mets. Luis Torrens, also good defensive catcher for the Mets. Doesn't have any minor league options. He's part of the roster. So Ben Rortvedt, looking at a really uphill battle for him. I would not be surprised if he's put back on waivers and if there's a little bit more gamesmanship that happens going forward. But at least for right now, Ben Rortvedt is no longer a Los Angeles Dodger. Why did the strategy not work for the Dodgers? I think it had to do with the timing of when exactly this went down. I don't think it's just we're going to do this in spite of the Dodgers, although I think there is at least a little bit of that because I think other teams understood what the Dodgers were trying to do. Recently, the 60-day injured list opened up. And that's the reason why the Mets were able to claim Ben Rortvedt, is the Reds decided to designate him for Ben Rortvedt for assignment really close to when the 60-day injured list window opens. And as soon as that 60-day injured list window opens and players can go ahead and put players on the 60-day injured list, that opens up a couple of additional roster spots for other teams to go ahead and claim those players. And because a couple of those additional roster spots opened up for other teams, that opened up additional opportunities from the last time when the Dodgers claimed Ben Rortvedt to the next time in which he was put on waivers, to where the Mets go ahead, claim Ben Rortvedt, and then if something happens to one of their catchers, or if there's an injury that I'm just not aware about within the Mets catching situation, they have Ben Rortvedt that they can go ahead and utilize. Or the Mets can try to do the exact same things that the Dodgers did. They prevented the Dodgers from keeping Ben Rortvedt in the organization. And then that leaves a little bit of a question mark as to who is the Dodgers' third catcher within the organization? Who are some players to be able to watch out for? Because if it's not Ben Rortvedt, the Dodgers need to have some sort of plan of what to do if there's an injury or something happens to the Dodgers catching situation. I'm going to cut it over to here. This is a tweet that was posted out about a week ago when the non-roster invite was posted out there. And looking at the catchers that are on the roster, or at least non-roster invites, Eliezer and Alfonso, formerly part of the Detroit Tigers organization, he's on the roster. GLP, Griffin Lockwood Powell is on the roster. He just made it up to AA. He has not had any AAA experience, so that could be something that could potentially be utilized against him, although he has a lot of experience with some of the pitchers that are in the Dodgers organization, especially some of the guys that came up through the system. Nelson Quiros, great season this past year, just made it up to the AA level. I think he's still got a little bit more room to grow to be that third catcher, so I would not expect that from him quite yet, although keep an eye out for Q. he was super fun to be able to watch, and I'm so proud of what Nelson Quiros was able to do, and that the organization is rewarding Nelson Quiros' effort. If there's a catcher in the organization last year that earned a non-roster invite to spring training, it's Nelson Quiros, and I'm glad the organization did right by him. Chucky Robinson is probably the front runner, only because we saw him in Los Angeles for, I believe, just one game last year. He very well could be part of the equation for guys that could be that third catcher within the organization. And then there's a sneaky one, and I think this actually might be one of the guys to look out to and watch pretty closely this spring training. Seby Zavala. Now, Seby Zavala is not somebody who there was any sort of publication that he had originally signed with the Dodgers organization. In fact, until the non-roster invite list was posted, I do not believe that there is any sort of public knowledge that Seby Zavala was on the Dodgers roster. But he's somebody that has a decent amount of big league experience. He's not going to be an offensive contributor, but there's some defensive stats to at least be curious about, especially if he can do at least a little bit of something. First thing to note, offensive performance has not been good offensive contributor. 111 WRC plus in 2022 with the White Sox, but that dipped down to being closer to the 45 to 46 type range. You look at his projections being closer to 60 WRC plus, in part because he strikes out way too much. It's a 35+% strikeout percentage for Seby Zavala. A little bit of power for him, ISO's above 120. That's decent enough, but there's not going to be that impact offensively for him. What you're going to notice, though, is defensively, this is where there could be some contributions for him on the defensive side. If you look at a couple of different metrics, look at defensive run save, fielding run value, look at 2022 and 2023 when he played the most catcher at the big league level, put up 3 and 6 defensive run saves, and this is the important one, 9 fielding run value in 2022 and 2023. That is really solid for Seby Zavala. You look at some of the other metrics, he's really good, and this is going to be the thing with him, really good at framing the baseball. 2023, 7 framing runs and 8 in 2023. I think there's some value, especially in that component. I'm curious to see how much of an impact that is actually going to have in the game of baseball with MLB going to a little bit more of the challenge type system. Is that going to have as much impact when batters can go ahead and challenge? I think some of that impact could be shaded off just because players have the chance to be able to go ahead and challenge certain egregious type calls. But I think some of those plays are still going to go uncalled, and having a player that can go ahead and steal strikes as needed, if ever needed. And this is the hope. The Dodgers are hoping that they don't have to turn to a third type of catcher. But if you have somebody that at least a couple of years ago was a really solid defensive catcher, even if you're not expecting really any sort of offensive contributions, which hopefully in this type of scenario, the Dodgers are looking for a little bit more of a short-term type of scenario for somebody to fill in the catching position. One player to be able to watch for in spring training, Seby Zavala. There's a couple of other options that the Dodgers could turn to, but if you're looking for a little bit more underrated, he's going a little bit under the radar in Dodgers this spring training. He's one of the players that I'm watching out for, only because I'm curious how the organization potentially might turn to if there is an issue at the catching position now that Ben Rortvedt is on the New York Mets. And who knows, maybe the Dodgers will reclaim Ben Rortvedt, designate him for assignment again, and try this again until he's part of this Dodgers organization. Very well could be the thing that the Dodgers do. All right, turning to some of the next moves, let's talk a little bit about the pitching side. And there's been some unfortunate news for the Dodgers and their bullpen situation. And this has to do with Brusdar Graterol. Now, this news is a couple days old. We have not done a show on this particular topic, but there was a lot of hope going into the season that Brusdar Graterol was going to start the season with the Los Angeles Dodgers on the MLB roster, and that we would get a little bit more of a regular season with Graterol. Obviously, past couple of seasons, he has not pitched really at all for the Dodgers organization, except when he is healthy, he has been an incredible contributor for the Dodgers. And this is something that I think the Dodgers are missing as part of their bullpen, or at least have missed the past couple of seasons. Obviously, was part of the 2024 postseason roster, but after that, did not pitch at all in 2025, and in fact, in the regular season, has not pitched a whole lot since 2023. 2023, last full regular season, His only really full regular season, 67 innings pitched, a 1.2 ERA. Great velo, gets an insane amount of ground balls, does Brusdar Graterol. But you look at his innings pitched by year, I mean, it's 23 in 2020. 2020, unique season. 33 in 2021, 49 in 2022. Just 7 innings at the big league level during the regular season in 2024. Missed all of 2025. And now we look ahead to the 2026 season. It sounds like they're at least going to slow play Brusdar Graterol to the point where I think opening day is highly, highly doubtful. In fact, I don't think Brusdar Graterol is going to make the opening day roster, and I think it's still a question mark of when he's actually going to make his return onto the roster, which is really disappointing, especially for Graterol's sake. This is going to be his last year within the Dodgers organization under team control. This is a contract year for Graterol. With the upside that he has, he's going to be fighting for some real money going forward. But unfortunately, at the beginning of the season, it's not going to come right away for him. The Dodgers are going to have to slow play Brusdar Graterol at the beginning of the season. So how does that leave the pitching situation? Because I think we can officially go ahead and move a Brusdar Graterol into the likes of an Evan Phillips or a Brock Stewart. What I mean by that is guys that are likely to miss opening day. I think those 3 guys have different timelines of when they're going to come back. But if guys that are going to miss opening day, Brusdar Graterol is part of that mix. So where does this leave the Dodgers pitching situation? Well, currently, as projected as of right now, I'm going to leave this right now. We'll get into some of the projections of what we could see with the Dodgers roster going forward in just a second. We have Glass now, Otani, Sasaki, Sheehan, Snell, Yamamoto. If they are all healthy, I think those are the 6 arms that the Dodgers turn to for their starting rotation. Where does this leave the bullpen? There's a lot of unknowns and not a lot of locks as part of this Dodgers bullpen of guys that can't be optioned down to the minor leagues that are going to be healthy. Edwin Diaz, Tanner Scott, Blake Treinen, Alex Vesia. That leaves a potential of 4 roster spots that are open for the bullpen for some of these optional guys to be able to fight for. Potentially looking at some of these relievers like a Kasperius, Dreyer, Gervais, Henriquez, Hurt, Klein, Kopp, Bobby Miller. You can look at a Justin Robleski or some of these spot starters as well to be able to fit into the mix. There's going to be plenty of roster spots to earn in spring training because of the injury to Brusdar Graterol. And what I think this is noteworthy, and perhaps this is where we could do a little bit of second guessing with the Dodgers organization. First off, I think the Dodgers do it better than any other organization in the game of baseball. But I don't think they do things completely 100% perfect. And I think this is where you could actually make a really strong argument, because recently, within the past couple of days, the Dodgers traded Anthony Banda to the Minnesota Twins. They received, I believe, $500,000 in international bonus pool money. I don't know what year that international bonus pool money is for, but they were able to get international bonus pool money. That is important because with the signings of Edwin Diaz and of Kyle Tucker, 2 guys that had the qualifying offer, they not only lost draft picks, but they also lost a lot of international signing day bonus pool money, which, if you look at last year, they also basically used all of that money to go out and sign a Roki Sasaki. So it's been a little bit more light in the international market for the Los Angeles Dodgers and signing those players, for example, from Latin America that go ahead and potentially could turn into MLB options. The Dodgers traded Anthony Banda for some of the Minnesota Twins international bonus pool money. And I think this is where you could get into a little bit of second guessing, because now that we've seen an injury happen to a Brusdar Graterol, or at least he's going to miss some time at the beginning of the season, one of the things that Anthony Banda potentially could have provided the Los Angeles Dodgers was just more innings pitched to be able to be part of this Dodgers roster. I think last year he posted 60-something innings pitched. I don't remember exactly, 60, 70 innings pitched during the regular season for the Dodgers. That is going to have to be filled by some of the younger guys that are part of the mix. Now, I think that actually is somewhat of a good thing, just because I think that it is good to be able to invest in some of the young talent. And you look at some of the guys, for example, like a Jack Schreier, like a Kyle Hurt, or like an Edgardo Henriquez, or Ben Kasperius, being able to have some of those guys continue with their development could be a very good thing. but was it too soon for the Dodgers to move off of Anthony Banda, understanding that injuries will happen and they want as many good, healthy pitchers to be part of the mix that are going to be MLB type of ready performers? And even though there are very justifiable reasons why the Dodgers decided to move off of Banda, I think there is going to be some negative regression coming up this upcoming year with some of the underlying metrics of Banda. He didn't have any minor league options, and flexibility is an important part of the Dodgers roster, but he would have been able to provide some innings to the Dodgers. I think those innings are going to have to come from some of the younger guys who might not have the same level of production, at least early, than Anthony Banda have. It could be better long-term for the Dodgers because you're investing in some of the talent that the Dodgers have as part of their system. But I think the Dodgers are going to need, especially now that Brusdar Graterol is more behind than what the Dodgers were hoping, they're going to need some of the younger guys to be able to step up. And they've got several different bullpen holes to be able to fill in at the beginning of the season. The good thing with the Dodgers is they have several different quality options to be able to turn to. Going back to this mix, if you want to include Justin Robleski as part of this mix, you could choose 4 of these guys to be part of the opening day roster, and I think there could be really good options that the Dodgers could turn to. Also, and this is something that I would not be surprised if the Dodgers do, if they want to add an additional guy into the mix, for example, one of the non-roster invites, and have them be part of the roster at least early, and keep that designated for assignment type of option open. For example, with somebody like a Ryder Ryan, or there's a couple of other relievers that are part of the mix. Wyatt Mills is going to be part of the mix that are going to be potentially optioned, or a Jordan Weems, or there's a couple of different guys that could be part of the mix. I think you could see that be part of the option that the Dodgers turn to, because let's remember last year, at the beginning of the season for the Dodgers, I believe it was Luis Garcia who started and made the opening day roster for the Dodgers to help get them through some of the injuries. I would not be surprised if that is the case for the Dodgers going into the season. So, Graterol, going to be slow played. Anthony Banda traded to the Minnesota Twins. We wish him nothing but the best. Banda was amazing on the Dodgers and provided them far greater things than what anybody could have expected or hoped for Banda as part of the organization. Again, he was at 3.14 ERA during his 2 seasons with the Dodgers. Great stuff for Anthony Banda on the Dodgers roster. So I think that leaves us with a couple of different questions. Let's stay on the pitching side of things, because what do we expect for the pitching staff going forward for the Dodgers, at least when it comes to the beginning of the season and opening day? Right now, we'll go ahead and let's do a little bit of a fun exercise. Let's actually project out what I think some of the rosters are going to be going into opening day. This is before spring training games have started. Again, spring training games start this Saturday against the Angels. Let's start with the offense first, just because I've kind of already outlined it. My expectation, or at least my initial guess, is Alex Freeland making onto this roster. And then my additional guess is going to be a little bit more of a wild card. I think the signing today of Santiago Espinal actually makes it onto this roster. If I had to guess today, which this very well could be wrong, my guess is this is the opening day roster on the position player side, assuming everyone is healthy. Ohtani, Smith, Betts, Freeman, Muncy, Hernandez, Pages, Tucker, Espinal, Freeland, Alex Cole, Miguel Rojas, and Dalton Rushing. That is my projected opening day lineup for the Dodgers, or at least roster on the position player side for the Dodgers. If we go over to the pitching side, what is the expectation for the pitching side? One of the names that you can look for on the starting pitching side, Blake Snell. We talked a little bit about this, I believe a couple of weeks ago, is there could be some, at least, concern about Blake Snell being able to start the season for the Dodgers, and I think there at least is some early reports that he might be at least a little bit more behind than some of the other starting Dodgers pitchers. If we're talking about projecting the roster for the pitchers going in for opening day, I think it is probably unrealistic that every single one of these starters is going to be starting the season for the Dodgers. Now, it's a question of which one, or how many of these guys are going to be healthy for the Dodgers. With Shohei Ohtani, he's the bonus pitcher, so I'm going to kind of leave him off to the side a little bit. Snell, I'm probably expecting to be ready to go for the start of the season. Sasaki throwing a lot, Sheehan throwing a lot. I think the 2 question marks of what you could see going into going into the start of the season, whether they'll be healthy or whether the Dodgers want to start them ready to go, is Blake Snell and Yoshi Yamamoto. Yamamoto, because of the workload that he has and because he's going to be throwing a lot in Team Japan, I actually think that he probably will start the season and they'll be strategic sometime during the middle of the season to be able to go ahead and give Yamamoto some rest. If I had to take a guess, I would guess probably that Blake Snell would be, if one of the Dodgers starting pitchers right here were to miss the start of the season, it would probably be a Blake Snell. Now, I'm going to put him off to the side right here just so I don't lose Blake Snell. If we're talking about a replacement in the starting rotation, be part of the starting pitching mix, one of the guys that I'm actually going to turn to when talking about projecting the Dodgers roster pitching-wise for opening day, I'm actually going to turn to Justin Robleski. I'm going to put him in the mix. And here's why. And here's where some of my strategy comes into play. With the moving off of Anthony Banda, because he does not have any minor league options, that leaves you with some strategy of what you have to do with some of your other pitchers. That opens up additional opportunities. And with Justin Robleski, he can either be utilized as a starting pitcher or he can be utilized as more of a bullpen type piece. And I think, and this would just be the strategy that I would have, I do not want to lose Justin Robleski. I do not want to miss out on the talent that he has. I want him to be part of the Dodgers roster for as long as he can be. And with Justin Robleski, they are, if he is utilized like he has been in the past, going to run into some of the same exact issues that they ran into with Anthony Banda. There's going to be zero roster flexibility for Justin Robleski if he is optioned up and down in the 2026 season. He's not going to have any options after that for 2027 and beyond. So I think one of the strategies that I would have is how do we try to, as best as we can, understanding that if there needs to be a time where they have to option to Justin Robleski, they go ahead and have that option to option Justin Robleski. But how do we protect that as best as we can? Because again, looking at the options for players, you're looking at one option year. I think they're almost certainly going to option Landon Knack at some point this year. I think, unfortunately, because of some of the concerns with some of the walks ability with Will Klein, I think they're going to option him, and I think he's going to be part of that up-down type train throughout the year. The one guy that I would want to control the number of option years and try to preserve that if I could is Justin Robleski. So what type of role could he have this upcoming season? I think it could be a couple of different roles, and this is how I would utilize him. I would utilize him as that, I would stretch him out to be a little bit more of that starter, but I would have him essentially be a little bit more of a piggyback type of starter for some of the games, especially when all of the starters are healthy. I want him to be a little bit more of a long relief, or if the Dodgers have a hole in some of the starting pitching type of scenario, to be able to help fill in and be able to provide some quality innings from the starting pitching standpoint. Regardless, I think there's some length that Justin Robleski, because of his past history of a starter and being able to take high workload, that he can be able to provide. And it's not just long relief, not necessarily great. I think there is some effectiveness that Justin Robleski can be able to have. But I think initially, because I think there could be at least a short-term need with some concerns with Blake Snell on the injured list, I think you could very well see a Justin Robleski being able to fill in as a potential starter. You could also see move Justin Robleski to a long relief, be part of the bullpen, and potentially turn to a Knack, Ryan, or Stone. I don't know how they're going to roll out River Ryan, Gavin Stone. I don't know if they want to slow play them at the beginning. I fully expect them to kind of move up and down as needed, but I think Justin Robleski very well could be part of this mix towards the beginning of the season, especially if there's some concerns with Blake Snell and what he's going to be able to provide. That, if this is the starting rotation for the Dodgers at the beginning of the season, which if they are able to use this as their starting rotation at the beginning, the schedule actually lines up really well, because essentially it would be each one of these guys starts one game a week, and you're able to space things out really well. The first couple of weeks of the season, it's 6 games, and then there's a day, at least one day off during that time period. It's usually at Thursdays. It's not until the end of April where they have a long stretch of games where they're probably going to need some additional rest for some of the starting pitchers and maybe some spot starters in the mix. That leaves 4 different relievers that they can add into the mix. This is not including a Justin Robleski. I think you could potentially throw somebody like a Jack Dreyer. phenomenal stuff that he's able to put out there. Very similar profile-wise to an Alex Vecchio, but it's just effective. Jack Dreyer, if he's healthy, I think could be part of the mix. I think you could throw in somebody like Ben Kasparius, who pitched almost all of last year at the MLB level. I think he could be part of the mix. I think you could do some sort of competition between Henriquez, Hurt, and Klein to be able to be another one of these options. I'll just put the guy with the top of alphabetical list, Edgardo Henriquez. And then I think the other option, and I mentioned this a little bit earlier, could actually be at the beginning of the season a non-roster invite that's part of the mix. It's not a fancy choice. It's not the choice that a lot of people would want to be part of the mix. But if they're wanting to fill in innings at the beginning of the season, kind of similar to how they did a Luis Garcia type of role, I think they could turn to one of these options, understanding that they were likely to option all of these guys at some point throughout the season, and they're wanting to preserve the amount of times they're optioning guys up and down, want to eat some of the innings early in the season with some of the guys that they have from the camp as non-roster invites. I think this very well could be the option that the Dodgers could turn to very early before spring training starts. Estimate of what the Dodgers opening pitcher roster could look like. Same thing with the position player side. This is kind of what I am looking at projecting based on where things are at with the Los Angeles Dodgers. A lot of different news, a lot of things to be able to turn to, and a lot of competition for the Dodgers to go ahead and turn to on this roster. I'm excited to be able to watch spring training games. Baseball has been a long time coming. Obviously, been waiting a long time since the World Series got finished up, so excited to be able to watch some spring training games this upcoming week. Excited to be able to interact with you guys as well. Hear some of your thoughts. I have not had the chance to be able to get into some of the comments, so I'll try to run through this. I got about 15 or so minutes before I have stuff that I got to do tonight. So if you guys have any questions, I'll try to get to those as quickly as I possibly can for you guys. Can't thank you guys enough for being able to tune in as part of the show. Casey and I be continuing to digest this over the next couple of days, as well as any additional news that comes up over the next couple of days. Let's get into a couple of comments. Showtime LA. Good afternoon, Austin. Super excited to see Josue de Paula, Depot, Hope, Jackson Ferris, and Cope, Patrick Copen. Justin Yamas, thank you very much for tuning in all the way from France, I believe, is where he's at. Showtime LA thinks Freeland is going to get the opportunity over Kim. We'll see what happens. Showtime think we'll see Sirota, Q, Eduardo Quintero, and Morales later this spring. They will pop up at some point throughout spring training games. I don't know how often that'll be. The only question mark is health-wise. What is Mike Sirota at? That we have not had any reports on. I will be traveling down to spring training in about a week, so we'll see if I have a chance to be able to see Mike Sirota and if he's moving around doing a lot of practice type stuff, because I'm sure when I'm over there on next Tuesday and the following Thursday at Camelback Ranch, I'm sure I'll be spending a lot of time on the minor league side of things as opposed to the major league side of spring training. That's just what with some of the guys that I know. Let's see. Continuing on some of the comments. Chuck Huddleston show this morning. Doc mentioned Freeland fourth when asked about second base options. Disappointing. I think that was in part, and perhaps I'm inaccurate with this, but I think some of the questions when it comes up to that are centered around Hae-Sung Kim and asking him first. So I think when Doc is asked those type of questions, I think he's first responding to some of those questions, and I think Kim typically comes first when that. Perhaps I'm inaccurate with some of that, but there's going to be certainly a lot of competition when it comes to the mix. Espinal also does play the second base position, so he could be fighting for some of that mix, but I still think there's going to be an open roster spot for either Kim or Alex Freeland. I'm still going to let things play out and see where things go. And if one of them is able to succeed, one of them is able to have a lot of success, that's going to help the Dodgers. I don't care if it's Freeland. I don't care if it's Kim. I just want one of those players to be able to go out and have a lot of success. And I think they're both going to get the opportunity because I think they both get paired together. And while the order can be indicative of where the organization thinks they're at, I don't think it's completely what the organization thinks about each one of these players quite yet. I would at least wait for things to be able to play out. Tark the Shark, the offense really missed Max Muncy when he was out of the lineup last year because of injury. Absolutely right. Target the Shark also says Tucker will help this team because he works and extends bats like Muncy does. Tucker's just an elite hitter. Absolutely right to both you and Justin Yamas. Absolutely right. Kyle Tucker was a huge addition to this Dodgers lineup, and I think Dodgers fans, once they see the play that Kyle Tucker has and just a lot of the similarities with less strikeouts, with a good decent amount of power, with a lot of impact, high batting average for Kyle Tucker, it's going to be a lot of similarities to Max Muncy, except with a little bit less swing and miss as part of Kyle Tucker's game. Still a lot of offensive success, and he is a massive contributor to be able to add to this lineup. Zach Arnoldson, Muncy definitely an impact back. Only issue is being injured more often lately and very slow to ramp up getting his strike back after the layoff. Defense has improved, range down a little bit. Yeah, and that's one of the things that the Dodgers are going to have to try to strategically do with Max Muncy is find ways to be able to keep him as healthy as he can be. That's when you could potentially look at platoon options to be able to get him some rest. And that's where somebody like a Miguel Rojas, Tommy Edman, where a potentially a Espinal or some other guy that could be that platoon option could be able to provide him some additional rest. Mr. Classic, we talked a little bit about Ben Rortvedt. He is gone with the New York Mets. Target the Shark, do you think the Mets pick up Rortvedt to give some payback to the Dodgers for signing Diaz? I don't know if that's exactly what happens, but we'll see him. Chuck Olsen says, my guess, Mets will DFA him before the season starts, and we'll see if he cleared waivers for him to keep depth at AAA. See what happens. Daniel Berry Sports Highlights, happy Monday to you as well. Left on base too often, not surprised. Edman is not ready. Absolutely right. I think this is something that if you were reading some of the tea leaves, especially some of the moves that the Dodgers had made, even with the Andy Ibanez signing, I think that was something that made a lot of sense with the signing and what that meant for Tommy Edman's health, and now with the move for Espinal, I think this is all expectation of what's going to take place. Yes, my goatee does go well with the uniform. Absolutely right. And it could go well with you too. You can get your Loons jersey. Again, Loons. You can get the hat as well. Loons.milbstore.com just released their promo code as well. Yang Yi, Rojas can platoon at second. Muncy Freeland platoon at third base. I don't think that's going to pair up entirely well, only because Alex Freeland much better against right-handed pitching. Exact same thing with Max Muncy. I don't think that is going to work out particularly. I just don't think the Muncy-Freeland platoon meshes really well. I think they're going to look elsewhere for guys that can really impact the ball versus left-handed pitching. And while Espinal doesn't necessarily impact the ball, he at least has a past history, MLB history of being successful against left-handed pitching. Espinal in his career, it's a 107 WRC plus versus lefties. Last year against lefties, Alex Freeland was a 21 WRC plus. Very small sample size for Alex Freeland. I think there's a lot of work that needs to be had. But if you're projecting out the success of what Alex Freeland is more likely to be successful at, it's against righties. And that's the exact same thing with Max Muncy. And I think if you want to give Muncy some rest and limit some of the downside that Muncy has, which he's not necessarily great against lefties, I think you need a little bit of a better platoon partner with Max Muncy. Just my thoughts though. You could totally think that's something that they go ahead and do elsewise. Justin Yamas, they're not adding Espinal to the 40. Espinal has no options. What I would say with that is I don't think it's a long-term solution to add Espinal to the mix. In fact, I think this is just a very short-term move that the Dodgers could turn to where they add him at the beginning of the season, and as soon as Tommy Edman is healthy, they decide to move off of Santiago Espinal. I see Espinal being a possibility because of the injury that Tommy Edman has, meaning the organization doesn't necessarily care about known minor league options because he is not added to the 40-man roster at this point, and thus not the 26-man roster. The only way the Dodgers add him onto the roster if he's going to be on the major league roster. And so the question is there a conceivable role for him at the major league roster? I think at the beginning of the season, I think that's a definite yes. If they want to find an infielder that can play decent enough defense and hit against left-handed pitching, which is the role that Tommy Edman has. I think start the season potentially with Espinal. As soon as Tommy Edman is healthy, ready to go, I think you move off of Espinal, and I don't think it's going to be that much of an issue for the Dodgers. That's how I see it. You could have a different opinion with that. Perhaps Espinal does not hit well at all during spring training, and they decide not to go down that path as well. And they decide, you know what? We'll just take an extra outfielder, perhaps a late-game defensive contributor, or a left-handed bat off the bench in Ryan Ward, and have him part of the mix. Just Yama's call his options left, so you can just stash him down in the minors without having to expose him to waivers, DFA him. Absolutely. I don't think he's going to be the next. I don't think he's going to be the next DFA candidate, Yang. I believe he has 2 minor league options left, which is good for the Dodgers because I think there's some value that Alex Call is able to provide. At least 100 WRC plus for him, or at least that's what he's been around, and decent enough defense at multiple defensive positions for him. Let's see. Espinal has 219 games at second base, 15 games in the outfield last year. Yeah, he's at least has different ability to be able to play a lot of different positions, Jay. So that's right. Mets had a third catcher, so David. Rortvedt is their 4th, and they have Barnes in the minor leagues. It's not a great move for the Dodgers. Yeah, it certainly is not necessarily a great move for the Dodgers, at least what they were hoping for as part of this mix. But we'll see what happens. I don't think he was going to play a massive role on the Dodgers anyway. I think he was more additional insurance that the Dodgers were trying to be able to add to the mix. The plan of what the Dodgers tried didn't work out, but I don't think the Dodgers are going to overly freak out with that. Showtime LA, what do you think of Kyle Hurts? ERA and K percentage will be at the MLB level this year. Best years at the minor leagues was near 40%, 2022 and 2023. Usually there is a drop-off once you get to the major league level, and I'm curious to see how he's going to be able to rebound coming off of the injury that he has, but I don't think it's unreal to try to project with Kyle Hurt an above average strikeout percentage. If it was 40% in the minor leagues, I do not expect that in the major leagues, but could you get 25% strikeout percentage for Kyle Hurt? I think that is a reasonable goal for him to be able to have. And then it obviously depending on health, and then ERA wise, anything below a 4 I think would be a success for Kyle Hurt. But I don't want to put those exact expectations on Kyle Hurt yet, only because I want him to be healthy going into the season and then allow him to be able to rediscover himself coming off of injury. So I'm going to wait a little bit for that to be able to take place. Yang Yi, if Barnes gets CFA'd, would Barnes sign with the Dodgers as the minor league deal? He did so with the Giants and the Mets, so why not with the Dodgers? Possible. I don't know if there's going to be an exact role with him at the MLB level, but certainly if you're looking at different options and you want that third catcher as part of the mix, having somebody who's as familiar with the Dodgers organization as Barnesy is, which he's also on the Mets, so he's also fighting the same uphill battle that Ben Rortvedt is, potentially could be an option that the Dodgers could turn to. I don't know if that's going to be what the organization wants to do, only because they've already decided to move off of him, nor do I know if that's going to be something that Austin Barnes in and of himself wants to do, just because he knows the uphill battle that he would have to fight to be able to do that. Yang Yi, Kim has the advantage since he can play center field. Dodgers don't have a backup center fielder. The backup center fielder at this point would be an Alex Call, who does have some time at center field. If you look at his games played, which I was looking at a little bit. Actually, I don't remember exactly what it's been. I don't know. I think he played there. I don't remember if it was 2 years ago at center field. He had 2023 season. 2023 season, he played actually 81 games at the center field position for the Nationals, the season in which he played the most. Past couple of years, not a whole lot of games at center field, but if you go back to 2023 in center field, posted 4 defensive runs saved, 7 outs above average, 8 fielding run value at the center field position, the only season in which he played more full-time at center field. Alex Call, right now, the reason why he is projected to make the opening day roster for the Dodgers is because he has this ability to be able to play center field. But certainly without Edman as part of this roster, the Dodgers don't have a ton of other options to turn to center field. And so Ha-Seong Kim, which has mentioned today that he's going to get some time in center field as well, I think that's intentional in that. If all things are equal with Kim and Freeland, could be pushing things in Kim's benefit, because that additional insurance in center field could be something that the Dodgers could want to turn to. Jay says the Dodgers bet that Rortvedt would get passed through waivers. He didn't. The Dodgers lost a bet, so it is what it is. Let's see. Justifying ex post facto is not necessary. Yeah, I don't think it was a bet that the Dodgers had. Same thing with a bet with Andy Ibanez. I don't think it's going to be I think it was a decision that the Dodgers, or a strategy that the Dodgers tried to take. It didn't end up working. I don't think it's a huge high stakes type of decision that the Dodgers make, meaning I think there's other guys that the Dodgers could turn to and be fine with it. But certainly, looking back at things, probably, maybe would have done things a little bit different. But I think with the knowledge that the Dodgers had at the time that they made those decisions, I think they made the best decisions that they could at those moments. Or at least what they thought was the best decisions for them, and they're fine with living with that. Let's see. Graterol uses his shoulder more than other pitchers. Who lose their lower bodies and legs to increase power. I think Graterol is going to struggle a lot coming back from shoulder surgery. We'll see what happens. Unfortunately, that very well could be an accurate statement for him. Young, I heard Roberts told Kim that he would be starting second with Edman out. I think it's going to be a competition between both him and Alex Freeland to be able to make the opening day roster. I would think it would be, especially with some of the expected stats with Ha-Seong Kim, I think it would be at least a foolish move by the organization to crown him the opening day player or give him the roster spot immediately at second base. I don't think that would be the right decision, just because even though Kim had a 95 WRC plus, had some success last season, I think there is a lot of reasons to be concerned. I would at least expect that to be a little bit more of an open competition. We'll wait and see what happens, though. But I don't think it's an immediate, we're granting him the position as of right now. So we'll see what happens. Chuck Huddleston Stone is healthy and his stuff like he was before his injury. He's a dog. Absolutely excited about that. Mr. Classic, the offseason was too long. This was the shortest offseason of all major league teams. So we'll see what happens. Justin Yamas, what do you expect out of Edman's offense realistically? I'm not expecting a whole lot. I would hope that it would be, I mean, if you're looking at just overall WRC plus wise, if you could get league average, that would be great. I'm probably expecting more closer to a 90 to 95 WRC plus player. But as I've talked about in the past, I want Tommy Edman, when he is healthy, be utilized more, not necessarily an everyday role. I actually want him to be playing a little bit more part-time. I want him to be playing solely, not just solely, but primarily against left-handed pitching, and then be able to fill in and add additional rest to some of the other players on this roster as well. So I think he can play second base versus left-handed pitching, fill in a lot of the mix to where he's playing a little bit more than 50% of the time. I think that's the optimal role for Tommy Edman, to where that 90 WRC plus could get raised to a 105 because he's a 110 WRC plus player versus left-handed pitching over the past 3 seasons. I think that's how you optimize and get the best out of Tommy Edman. But the reason why the Dodgers decided to sign Tommy Edman is not solely for his bat, it is for his glove as well. Young Yi would have hurt in the bullpen. That's very well could be the option that the Dodgers could turn down. I would not be disappointed with any of that getting hurt as part of the bullpen. Mr. Classic Kim is hitting off of Roki and Yoshi, so it's a good indicator that he's pretty level to hitting major league pitching now consistently with the issue. We'll see what happens with Kim. I'm not rooting against Ha-Seong Kim at all. I think it would be great development for him to be able to go out there and have some success. The biggest thing that I'm looking at for him is to be able to cut down on the swing and miss. If he can do that, I think with the skill set that he has, he can tap into a ton of success. And I want him to be able to hit for more consistent contact. I just don't know if that development process is going to be face a bunch of big league pitching and then he'll get rid of some of that swing and miss, or if some of that development could be had at the minor league level. That's going to be some of the questions that I have with Ha-Seong Kim going forward. That's been my stance on him. I'm not out on Kim, but I want certain aspects to be raised, or at least the floor to be raised, to tap into the talent that he has. Super fun, super nice guy. It's just, you can see with the popularity that he has and what he's able to bring to this Dodgers clubhouse, to the Dodgers roster. It is remarkable what Kim is able to do, and I'm excited that he's part of the organization. I just want certain steps to be able to be there, and I don't want to immediately crown him the job when there is other competition that has done really well at the minor league level that could go ahead and go out there and have some success. So that's a lot of news for the Dodgers that we were able to talk about today. We were able to talk about Max Muncy's contract. We were able to talk about Kiké Hernandez re-signing. We were able to talk about Tommy Edman missing opening day. Santiago Espinal being able to added potentially to this roster. Rortvedt to the Mets. Banda to the Twins. Graterol potentially missing the start of the season. And what we expect going forward with the roster for the Dodgers. Ultimately, this is an exciting week for the Dodgers because baseball is happening on Saturday. People are flooding the fields or going to be flooding the fields of Camelback Ranch. If you're going to be at spring training, have a lot of fun. I will be flying out there a week from today. So next Monday, there will be no show that I will be doing because I've got a late flight out to the Phoenix general area. We'll be going to games. I believe the plan is Tuesday through Friday. So there'll be 2 games at Camelback Ranch, 2 games on the road for the Dodgers. Excited to be able to go out and have some interaction with that. Just be able to go see some of the players, watch some of the games, watch some baseball being back. And that's what we're most excited about. Baseball being back for the Dodgers and the fight to go ahead and go 3 straight is on for the Dodgers. Baseball will be happening on Saturday. Until then, Casey and I will be doing another show, very likely a Wednesday, Friday show. Casey and I will be doing this week. At least that's my expectation of what happens. Could be a little bit of a change of plans that happens. We'll be doing a couple of additional shows this week, so be looking forward, being able to tune into that. Also, check out the interview that Casey just posted yesterday with one of the Dodgers scouts. Really good interview that he was able to post. If you have not had the chance to be able to watch it, I highly encourage you guys to be able to watch it. Until next time, though, thank you so much. Can't thank you guys enough to be able to tune in. Austin J asked, will you post some of the sights and sounds of the game on X? We'll see what happens. I probably will post at least a little bit of something on social media. I post most of my stuff on X, on Twitter, and that's just the platform that I utilize that. So if you are not following me, go ahead and follow me there. Also, been posting a lot of highlights and stuff from the Loons the past 5 seasons. We'll continue to do that over the next 45 days as we count down to the Loons opening day. But I'll try to do a little bit of stuff for spring training. Try to see what exactly I can do. I don't have any backstage or backfield type pass as far as media is concerned. So I'll be just kind of like a generic fan that is going to be able to be there. But if there's additional stuff that I can go ahead and post on there, I try to be able to do that for you guys. Until next time, though, which I believe should be Wednesday, Casey and I will be on live. I can't thank you guys enough. Thank you for tuning in. God bless, and go Dodgers.